Welcome to this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you walk away enriched and inspired. And today we have with us Michael T. Brown, licensed counselor, leader, and author. And he has written several books, Born to Achieve, A Beautiful Challenge, and several other, The Brown Bag. So he has hosted that particular show on Blog Talk Radio. More we'll learn from Michael himself. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you, AJ. I appreciate you having me. Look forward to our conversation.
Welcome to the show once again, this time on the Author's Voice with KJ. And this is not just the second time, but we'll keep on talking several times. But first, before we come to the book itself, we'll talk about the book. The book's name, A Beautiful Challenge. We'll talk about that. But first, let's understand about your journey to becoming an author itself, the story behind you becoming an author.
Yes, my story is really connected to my experience working in the helping professions, having served as a mentor, a counselor, a leader in various realms. I can't say I set out to be an author. I think in many ways it found me. Whenever you help people and you serve others, you learn a lot. And when you learn a lot, you feel compelled to share it. And the two books that I wrote, in many ways, were birthed out of those experiences. The first book, Born to Achieve, in many ways, is a love letter to our youth, to inspire them to be their better selves. Building healthy relationships, a beautiful challenge, is birthed out of my experience as a therapist and helping others in relationships, whether personal or professional. From helping so many couples and individuals, I learned some things and I wanted to share. And so I'd say that's been my journey towards being an author.
Absolutely. And now the story behind this particular book, A Beautiful Challenge. Tell us a bit about this part. What inspired you to write this particular book, Michael?
I really thought about relationships as being a beautiful challenge, right? That anything that we're going to have that's going to bring us beauty in life, that's going to cause us to thrive and flourish, is going to come with some opposition. It's going to come with some adversity. I believe healthy relationships are not inherited. They're worked for, they're fought for, and they're won. And through this book, I give some tools and some strategies to help us to navigate those challenges. And I look forward to talking to you a little bit more about it.
Absolutely. So let's talk a bit more about it. What is this book about? You talked about relationship, but I'm sure this is a book. It has many, many elements to it. Tell us a bit more in detail about what this book is all about. Who is this book for? How does it help people? Someone who wants to, why should anyone be interested in this book?
Well, let me talk to you about my 4 C's of healthy relationships. And I think that'll give a good overview of what the book encapsulates. The first C is communication. The key to any healthy relationship, right, is having healthy communication. The second key is connection, right? Whether it's personal or professional, we need to be able to connect with other people in positive and healthy ways. The third C is consistency, right? In order to maintain a healthy relationship, we need to be able to show up and be consistent on a regular basis. And the fourth C is correction. What do we do when things aren't working out? Do we have the tools? Do we have the skills to be able to course correct? So communication, let's talk a little bit about that, right? So communication, are we speaking clearly to our audience? Are we able to, communication is a two-way street, talking and listening. And when that street gets blocked, when there's roadblocks along that way, right, our relationships are hurt. So in the book, we talk about ways to use I messages, reflective listening, make assertive requests, right, where we tell how we feel, where we can prove that we heard the other person. But ultimately, we can ask for what it is that we need. So there's skills in there. And it's a bit of a workbook. There's some strategies in there that will challenge the reader to practice some of these things at home. When it comes to connection, right, it's no way around time spent. and you hear a lot about, the 5 love languages, right? How we like to receive love. All of that is about building connection with other people, right? So there's a bit in there, a bit in the book about that. Consistency, really deals with how we show up. How we show up, whether it's a personal relationship or a professional relationship. Maybe you've heard it put this way, AJ. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the only way they can truly know how much we care is if we show up for them on a consistent basis, to show love, to show kindness, to show warmth, to show empathy. So in the book, we talk about some of that, the emotional intelligence that we need in order to maintain a healthy relationship. It's one thing to have the butterflies and the romanticism, right, to start a relationship. It's another thing to have the consistency to be able to continue to show up and show love and have empathy. And that last C is correction, right? We know it. Relationships are going to have their ups and downs. Sometimes we're going to come to an impasse. Sometimes there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be arguments. Do we have the tools to navigate it? Can we problem solve effectively? Can we manage our emotions to ultimately get to the desired result? So I think those 4 C's really encapsulate a lot of the meat that's in the book. And yeah, so I encourage everybody to check it out. They can go onto my website, brownsleadership.com, or they can email me directly at email@brownsleadership.com. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with your audience.
Absolutely. And who is this book for? Is it only in personal setting, or is it also applicable for businesses, also applicable in communities? Help us understand that.
All of the above, because we need to communicate, whether it's personal relationships, professional relationships, our community interactions. I say it's for anybody who wants to have a healthy relationship.
Right. So you are also into leadership consulting. You are a licensed counselor. You know about leadership and all. So why do you think so much of leaders are facing so many difficulties in spite of having such great expertise in terms of learning, in terms of also professional qualifications and so on? Still, they are facing this problem. Is it only because of communication, or is it beyond that, Michael?
I believe it's beyond that. Communication is important, but we also need to have leadership skills, right? I believe leadership is really about the positive influence that we bring to others. It's about being a servant. It's about understanding the needs of people and showing the humility to help meet those needs. As you started talking about leadership, a quote, a phrase really came to mind, and that is, leaders are readers, right? Not only do they read books, they can read situations. They can read people. They can read which way the wind is blowing, right? They try to read which way the wind is blowing in order to get a group of people to a desired result. In order to be a reader, there needs to be a certain amount of humility. And oftentimes, people think about leadership as about being out front and being that dynamic speaker. That certainly can have its place, but I think of leadership as many ways can look more like the person who's behind the scenes, who you can go to and count on. They may be out front, but they're willing to do the work behind the scenes. And I think there's a desperate need, right, in our society, in every walk of life, for more leaders, because we all can make a positive impact. Leadership is not just title driven. I believe it's towel driven, meaning willing to serve, right? And that may come with a title, but it's a whole nother ball game when you get leaders who are not focused on hierarchical power, but personal power to impact people's lives in a positive way. So I'm glad you asked that question.
You're welcome. So let me ask you this way. What is the most important part that you would like to tell someone? Okay, this is something of my favorite, and this is I want to at least know about what's in the book. Can you remember anything of that sort, Michael, that you want people to at least read that part?
Yeah. Yes. In the book, I talk a good amount about forgiveness and how forgiveness can help unlock a door to success. Sometimes we think about forgiveness, about what we might be losing, or how difficult it is, and it certainly can be difficult. But in the book, I talk about, in order to totally be free from pain or trauma or difficulty, sometimes we have to find it in our heart to forgive others. The same way we would hope people could find it in their heart to forgive us if we were to hurt them. So forgiveness in many ways equals freedom. And all of us in any relationship, right, who's been in a relationship any good amount of time, may run into a point where we may get it wrong, or somebody may get it wrong with us. And we get the opportunity to choose to forgive. Forgiveness does not mean what the other person did is right. Forgiveness does not always equal reconciliation, but forgiveness can equal freedom. We can free ourselves from the bitter taste of unforgiveness, because unforgiveness is a heavy cost as well. So I encourage others who may be struggling with that right now. Maybe I can't find it in my heart to forgive. The pain is so deep. That's maybe where you can tap into your spiritual meaning. Sometimes we have to, God, help me to forgive, right? The pain is too difficult. Or they might need help with a therapist to help them navigate their emotions and create boundaries moving forward. So yeah, that's an excerpt that I would highlight from the book.
Wonderful, wonderful, Michael. Well explained indeed, and you make it sound, that it all very easy. People can do it, but this book is writing is not an easy part. Everyone, and when you are doing other things also. Let me ask you, what was the most challenging part of writing this particular?
Good question. One of the biggest challenges for me was time management, I'd say. Like you said, having responsibilities. Sometimes, too much time away from the book can cause you to drift a bit. Fortunately, this book was so passionate in me that I was able to manage those time management issues, because there was something on the inside that needed to get out. And I encourage anybody who's out there, maybe there's a book in you, maybe there's a project in you, maybe there's something in you that needs to get out. Don't let it die on the inside. I was talking with somebody recently who's using the technology to help her write a book, and she talked about using, voice to text. Think about the technology now, AJ, and how we can literally sit on our phone and tell our story. And it can literally turn into a written text for us. So use the technology, use whatever inspiration you need to help get your story out, because somebody might need to hear that story or that idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Michael. Absolutely. So, in a nutshell, what do you want your readers, what message, what insights, key insights that you want your readers to take away from reading from this book?
I think in many ways it depends on what they bring to the book, right? Their experiences is going to help dictate what they're going to get from it. But some key things that I would say that I would hope they would get from it is to realize that we can skill build in the area of relationships. Some things are taught, some things are caught. The things that we didn't catch growing up in our families or in our whatever environment we grew up in, some of these things can be taught. AJ, I took a class in college called communication, but it was more about, public speaking. We didn't talk much about I messages. We didn't talk about reflective listening or assertive request, body language. We talked some about that, but some of these things can be taught. And someone may be thinking, I keep running into relationship issues. Maybe there's some skill building that needs to be done there. Not always do our relationships suffer from a lack of will. Sometimes it comes from a lack of skill. And some of these things can be taught, and we can make progress in our relationships. As mentioned earlier, successful, healthy relationships are not inherited. It's not automatically a birthright. They must be fought for and won on a consistent basis. So I would hope the reader would take that.
Absolutely. So this particular book, Earlier you wrote Born to Achieve. Any other book in the pipeline, Michael?
I hope so. You've given me some homework here, AJ, and yeah, I need to be thinking about what's next. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's so much to learn about all these things from you, Michael, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about this book and your other book, Born to Achieve. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yes, they can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at mtbrown98, or on LinkedIn. They can find me there on my name, Michael T. Brown. And again, as I mentioned earlier, on my website, brownsleadership.com. They can even email me directly, or even do a Google search, Michael T. Brown. You can find me there. My email is email@brownsleadership.com, and I'd love to connect with your audience. And AJ, let me thank you for the work you do, for sharing this platform with others. And I realize it's not always easy, so I appreciate the energy, the effort you put in that a lot of people might not see, and continue making a positive impact.
Thank you for that, Michael. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.